involves diverging to explore a problem. We do this by focusing on understanding the problem by engaging in market and user research. Here we ask questions like, who has the problem? And is solving this problem valuable to our customers and profitable for us? At this discover stage, some of the techniques and the methodologies we use include doing empathy interviews, sending out surveys, holding a workshop with a customer advisory board, and doing contextual inquiry, or said it another way, observation. The picture that you see here, hopefully you can see my mouse, is actually one of our developers and our product marketing manager. I was there too, but I was taking the picture. But the hard hats that we were wearing speaks to the fact that we were in a customer site observing their environment. When we get to the define stage, we converge to focus on the right problems. Now that we've gathered insights during the discover stage, the focus now is on the specific problems and or unmet needs of our customers. Here, we are asking questions like, what benefits are we looking to provide our users? And what are the set of functionalities needed to achieve the business outcomes and deliver the expected user benefits? Our product team is concerned about the kinds of solution the customers would view as desirable. The picture that you see here tells of an instance where we combine defining the persona and the intended customer journey. I'm pointing here, hopefully y'all can see, but you see me storytelling with a day in the life of scenario along the lines of a day in the life of a field operator looks like this while using this product. So I'm asking our customers, can you please validate that this is accurate and this is the way a field operator would use this product? Finally, within our develop stage, we're diverging again to explore potential solutions. The focus is on coming up with the potential solutions to problems quickly and cost effectively. Questions we ask here, how do we visualize a problem from the perspective of the users? And how do we invite them to come up with solutions? Methods we've done in this stage include giving form to an idea, like producing a low fidelity prototype or maybe even a high fidelity prototype. And we put that in front of our customers to give something to react to. Or sometimes it's doing validation through usability testing on completed features. My personal favorite is through collaborative design with customers. The picture that you see here, and this is the last picture I'm going to talk about, is a designer's dream. This is actually a sketch submitted by a customer when we asked them, what elements would you include if you were developing a dashboard? And they sent this sketch to us, basically outlining, if I was this role, this is what I would expect. All right, that is it for our lecture section, you all. We will now do an exercise where we will do a mock demo of a working software where you as our participants will act as our target end users. Really, our aim in this mock demo is to highlight the mechanics and the logistics for doing a demo. Also talk about best practices and some of our lessons learned, but most importantly, we want to allow you to practice what you're learning about. So with that said, let's move over to Mural. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and access the link. Amanda, I think you sent that link over earlier, right? Maybe it's better to just resend that.
Yeah, that should be the last thing everybody sees in their chat right now. Can you all hear me, by the way? Just want to check.
Yep, we can hear.
Yeah, okay, great. Sorry, because my earphones went dead and I wasn't sure if the laptop would just pick it all up for me. So it seems to have. So I dropped that link in the chat there. So if you can.
You would, open that link using Google Chrome, please. And it's helpful to have a mouse, use the scroller or the roller ball in your mouse. So it'll help you navigate the Mural easier. And with this, Amanda, I'm going to stop sharing if you want to grab the screen
Yeah.
share now.
If you're ready, okay, let me grab that from you. Okay. Okay, so I am screen sharing. Can you all see a mural here?
Yes.
Yep, we can see it.
You can see the screen. Okay, so as Grace said, this is mock demo. So what we're really trying to show you here is how we solicit feedback from our customers. It's not really that we want feedback for our product, but it's more we want to show you how to use this template and that this is what we do when we're looking for feedback from our customers, especially in a remote session point of view. I think that's the big point. We also do in-person sessions, but specifically because we're remote right now and because, you know, of the nature of the way we're doing business these days at the moment, we want to be able to show you a tool that we use for soliciting remote feedback here. So for those of you who are in the mural, you will see it all firsthand, but what I'm going to, and I'll summon you if I can find my name. Okay, so this will help you all navigate a little bit, I guess, while I'm showing. So when you find your name, if you were a host using Mural, you can say ask to be followed, and then everybody kind of gets the choice of following you around the place. Also, if you don't like looking at everybody's cursors, you can say whether you do or don't want to broadcast yours, and you can also say don't show me. Sometimes it gets busy here and it won't let me click on it. You can say don't show me the cursors. If I can get back to that, I'll do that. So basically you've got about 10 people follow me. Okay, so just to give you a few tips and tricks on Mural here, but before we do that, I want to kind of do a warm-up exercise here just to see that those of you can actually access it. So if you wouldn't mind in this participant section, it just put your name and your company. If you can fit that in here. I saw there were 70 people in the meeting. I don't know if all 70 people made it to the mural, so I put extra name spaces in here. So sorry, it looks a little cluttered right now, but pick a space where there is nobody and put your name in there. Awesome. So it looks like folks can type. If you can't type or access this, let us know and we will help. You know, you can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourselves and we'll help. So the point of this exercise is really just to show you all how we solicit feedback. So we would do this for customers. We would say, can you all put your names in there, make sure that everybody can actually access the mural and type. And then the next thing I'm going to do when you all have done that is, or while you're all doing that, is if you could grab one of those stars, you see these gold stars over here, give yourself a gold star already for being here. So bring the gold star down here beside your name and I'll put that there. So that's just to make sure that you all have gotten the mechanics of, you know, can you use mural? I'll show you the stickies in a second, but I also wanted to show you if you want to navigate the panel in a different way, there's this panel down here on the right hand side. You can do it that way. So you can click on various aspects of the panel and you can zoom and zoom out. If you have a mouse wheel, you can zoom in and zoom out like that. I don't want to make you all sick, so I won't do that too often. So the other way you can do it, we have this thing called an outline. And as you're navigating your template and you get the outline like this, you see that little dotted area here. It looks like bullet points. If you click on that, it will bring you up basically a menu of what's going on in the mural. And if I click on the participants, you'll see it brings me straight back there and zooms in on that area. Again, don't want to make anybody too dizzy, but I'll just kind of show you, a few of those things and I'll go back to participants. No, actually, I'll start at the beginning and kind of walk you through what we do. Okay, so again, this is kind of something we use when we're setting up. So what we do before we set up the demo is we do all this pre-work area. We decide, who are we inviting? What are we going to do? What's the point of what we're trying to do here? What feedback are we looking for from our customers? So we fill that all out ourselves to say, we're looking for, here we would say we're looking for some feedback on this particular product. We want to understand whether this is easy to use or not. So Dwayne's going to show you that in a couple of minutes, but what we decide is, what are the things we take screen grabs of the products that we want to show everybody, and then kind of decide what the story is, the flow of the whole demo here. So that's what we do here. We kind of, come up with the nitty gritty things of time and is it a Zoom? What is it doing? Who's doing what in the assignment? Any things any best practices, you'll find those here for us. And then any of the details that might be specific to your own company or things that you need to look out for, things that you all need to be concerned with, that's here. So then what we do is we would put together our session info. Oh, there's a giant sticky. So someone's able to make stickies, so that's good. We'll cover stickies in a second. So here's our session info for today. Bearing in mind, what we're trying to show you here is how we set this up. So here we are, we've set up the details, what we're going to cover today. We're going to go through functionality to show you a static display. And what we're going to do is make it animated, and we want to solicit the customer's feedback. So you're all going to pretend to be customers in this realm, but observing how we do the mock demo so that you can solicit feedback in future in kind of the same manner. So we're going to ask you all to put your feedback in for us, you know, of things as you're going along so that you can play along and be the customers. And then, you know, if you had a particular roadmap that you wanted to share with your customers, you put that in here to tell them what's happening next, if there's other sessions or new functionality that you're looking at next. So kind of to tell them about that. We already did the participants area here, so you all have a look at that. So just to give your customers a you know, bird's eye view of what it is they're going to be looking at, we give them screen grabs here, have a little description maybe of, you know, what we're about to show them so that they have an idea of what it is they're going to be giving the feedback on. And then here in this next section, this is where I'll be asking you all to be active later as we go through the demo. And actually, if you want right now, just going to show you on editing stickies. I know some of you have been able to make them, but if you double click on the sticky, you can start to type here. And that is what you would ask your participants to do to make sure they're able to type in the sections. So double click, and then if you want to remove it, you just hit delete. Okay, so it's these, some of you can access the stickies. So it's just a double click, and we will make more if we run out of stickies too. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then while you're getting that feedback from the participants, your customers, who you all are going to pretend to be, there's also this section where we do what observers. So Kenny, Dwayne, Grace, and myself, we're going to be the silent observers if you all unmuted yourselves. Sorry, and I see somebody's asking for the mural link, so I'll re-put that out there again. If you were all to start talking, like let's say some of your customers might be either they're shy or they're not shy or whatever, or they're talkative or, you know, they're kinetic or whatever kind of customers you have, you know, they might be talking and maybe they don't make notes at all, but your silent observers are listening for that feedback and putting those in there too, so that you can also capture those elements of what's going on in your demo. So you're not missing things, right? You want to get all of that. Then once you've done, and I'm sorry, I guess the other thing to mention here is that we organize it in the order of, you know, here's this first screen. This is what Dwayne's going to talk about first. Here's what the customers are going to do. And while we're listening, we put our feedback in here. So we kind of correlate it all with each of the sections. And obviously, if you need to make this bigger, just make the whole thing bigger and add more sections in there. And then as we're going along, if there's any general feedback that somebody has, they could add it here if it doesn't pertain specifically to these things. And then for yourselves, you know, if you're hosting one of these, there might be something customer comes up with that you don't really, that you can't address in this particular scenario, and you want to address it later. So we have this area down here called the parking lot. And so you make notes of those things and kind of we cover those with your customers and the folks at your demo at the end to make sure you got and this is in general, actually, you cover everything with your customers at the end of the demo so that you make sure you got the gist of what they were actually saying as opposed to what you think they said. And that's real important because yes, you've got the notes, but you want to make sure you understood those. And so that brings me to the wrap up, so the debrief up here and the post, we call it the post work. You can get to it from here. Should zoom in a little. And so this would be something that you do after the demo session. You can either, if you have time, you can do it then, or you can, you know, schedule a time later to do it. So basically you would update the recording of the meeting so folks have that, and then you would go through the stickies and do the voting. So what we do is we do something called affinity clustering. So things that are like ideas, we put those together and so group those, and then we get the participants to kind of vote on those aspects of what we should tackle next, what they think the highest priority would be of things that we should tackle next in the scope of what we've just demoed. And then I guess here, then the other thing is, these are our lessons learned, you know, give participants some time after we've done the session so that they can add in things they thought about later. Am I covering your section, Grace? Was this something we're going to do at the end?
Yeah, I'll cover this. Don't worry about this.
I'll cover this in more detail, but I kind of generally wanted to give you the gist of what we're going to do. So I think that's everything that we wanted to talk about here. Anybody got any questions about getting into the mural, how to type things up here? Any of that? Can all zoom, edit to the stickies and that kind of thing.
I don't see any on the chat, okay, Amanda. So I think we're good to proceed with the mock demo.
Yeah, I'll hand it over to Dwayne. And I'll unshare here, Dwayne, so you can take over.
Okay, so as Amanda said, she gave a good context about the mechanism of how we go about doing this demo. And so for this demo here, we're demonstrating our design, our early design, and seeking early validation. This is the validation part of the development stage that Grace mentioned earlier. And in Agile, we talk about things moving to the left. So this is trying to get early validation as early as possible so as to not get to the point where you're done with the product and you find out it didn't quite meet the customer's needs. So for this session, you as attendees of the conference are representing our customer. Or keep in mind, this is a demo for demo purposes only. So our focus today is to go about showing you how to go about doing the customer engagement, not the actual product that I'm going to be showing you itself. So our product, as Kenny mentioned, is Delta V, and it is used to control factory processes. And as Kenny mentioned, anything from oil refineries to pharmaceutical plants. In a factory's control room, operators use our Delta V Live HMI application, which I can show you here, to see a virtual representation of what's happening in the process, seeing live data, and controlling that process by opening and closing valves, starting and stopping pumps. The Delta V Live application uses displays like this one that are created using a different application called Graphic Studio. And an engineer would...
Dwayne, I don't think we're seeing your screen right now.
Uh-oh. Oh, I didn't push the share button. Sorry. My bad. You seeing it now?
Now we are, yep.
Okay. And so the other application that we use to build these displays is Graphic Studio. It show up. Here we are. Oops, I clicked too much. There we go. That's Graphic Studio. This application was designed with the intent of modeling behaviors that our customers may already know, such as through the use of Microsoft PowerPoint or Visio. So Delta V Live displays have static elements, such as textual titles, shapes, and lines to visually represent the physical elements of the process, such as tanks, valves, pumps, and pipes. And these elements can be animated in such a way that they visually represent the process. So for this demo, envision that you own the Acme Paint Company, and you have a factory where yellow and red paint are combined to make an orange paint color. The task at hand is to use Graphic Studio to make a display useful by visually showing real-time data from the factory within the Delta V Live application's displays so that operators can control the factory. Graphic Studio application is broken out into different parts, very typical of most applications in Microsoft and Windows. There's a ribbon of functions across the top, and there's a hierarchical graphics explorer showing the hierarchical view of all the configuration that you have for your paint plant. And I've created a display called ADW Paint in Advanced. Open that here. Once I open it, you have the display itself. You have a palette of building blocks that you can use to create that display. You can drag them onto the display. And then you have this configuration pane where you can find behaviors of the items on your display. So someone has already created this display for you, representing your paint factory. This would be like the yellow tank, the red tank, and the orange tank. And it has two valves that are using some pre-built library items to represent a control valve that we can open and close. And then there's these lines that are representing the pipes, the connectors between the tanks. And this is what the display looks like currently in the Delta V Live application. Pick it from the list. Pretty boring right now. Configuration pane in Graphic Studio, again, lets you configure specific things, such as if I click this tank object up here, that's a rounded rectangle shape. has all these elements that I can set to define its behavior. So let's configure these to represent our different paint colors. So for the fill color, as you can see, it's broken down into headings, grouping the like attributes. Under fill, I have fill color, fill percent, fill angle in the background. I'm going to choose a fill color of yellow for this one. Fill color of red for this other one. For this one, I'm going to choose a fill color of orange. So this gives you a basic introduction to our Graphics Studio application. At this point, I'd like to ask if there's any feedback from our customers, you all, and go ahead and use the mural and do some stickies if you have any feedback, good or bad. One thing I'll point out is when you're doing a demo, you don't want to just ask if there's any questions because they might not have questions. What you really are seeking at is their impressions of it. So you ask for feedback, leave it open-ended, ask for their feedback, good or bad, and also address any questions they might have.
I think you're asking Dwayne for feedback on 1A section
Yes.
of the mural where it says feedback added by participants. But prior to that, though, I just kind of wanted to do a quick note. Notice, this is to all the participants, you know, this is like a learning or, you know, key moment. Notice how Dwayne started with very basic information and he gave an overview. So basically what he did there was he leveled the playing field for the participants because typically, you know, reality is we have a diverse group always with different experience levels. So that's a kudos to you, Dwayne, how you started it off. You just gave a basic introduction before you actually started to get into the demo side of things. So at this time, I believe what Dwayne demoed is under section 2, feedback added by participants, under 1A. So he was asking about the static configuration of this. So if you all would go to that section, you either verbalize at this time, you know, you would ask participants, you would, you know, to verbalize their thoughts or input or feedback, and then silent observers can jot that down. Or typically though, what happens is they feel more comfortable getting on the post-it notes and adding their thoughts there because some folks are shy, right? And so the other thing to point out while you all are filling that out is we typically ask our participants, those adding to the post-it notes, to add their initials so that, you know, somebody typing away, and then they stop midstream, and then you're having to like review the comments added, and you're like, oh, what did he mean by that? So there's an easy way for you to say, oh, okay, so Amanda added that comment that we can, like, if needed, we can go back to Amanda and say, hey, Amanda, what did you mean by this type thing? Team, what other techniques or tips that we can add while I see folks adding comments to 1A here?
Sarah's
Should
trying
I proceed with stage 2 to 1B?
Yeah, just before we do, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button there. The other thing I guess would be just to let folks, your customers know how much time you're going to take for comments. It depends on how stuck for time you might be, and then maybe even just during that time, go through reading them before you move into the next section, if you have that kind of time.
Yep.
Yeah. You do want to make time to make sure you understand what they're writing about. Thanks.
Thanks, Amanda. Dwayne, for the sake of time, I'm doing a time check, making sure we're not running out of time here. Go ahead and proceed to 1B, and then that'll conclude our mock demo, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, so the initial stage was pretty basic and elementary. Now we're going to be doing a demonstration of how to make it dynamic and show some real-time values affecting how this display responds. So for this one, we're going to change this yellow tank to show the yellow going up and down based on how full the tank is. And that's going to be getting real-time data from our factory. To do that, I click on here and I see this fill percent attribute, and I can dynamically link it to some real-time data by clicking this diamond shape and selecting animation. At this point, it gives me an opportunity. Where is it? I don't know why it took a little longer there. It expands the fill percent into a bunch of new settings that you now have available to you now that you can animate it. You can animate it from 0 to wherever its fill percentage is, or from the top down, or from 2 different points. Lots of variations there. We're going to keep it simple, filling it from the bottom, as most tanks fill from the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to fill in this fill attribute to be the parameter that's bringing in that real-time data from the Delta V control system. I'm going to go ahead and browse to that particular parameter in my module, control module. And this is my yellow tank. So in my ADW paint plant area, I'm going to go to yellow tank level. I'm going to pick level percent to pick CV. That's current value. And by doing that, it automatically fills in that field with the syntax that's needed for our application. I'm going to go ahead and copy that because for the red tank, I don't necessarily need to go through the browsing methodology. I can just copy paste and modify that path in a simpler way. So instead of yellow paint, I'll just change that to red paint because I know that that's my path to it. And similarly for the orange tank. Okay, now the only other 2 things that need to be animated are these valves. I want to be able to open and close the valve. So I'm going to select the valve and I'm going to fill in the module name that runs that controls that valve. That's my valve, my yellow tank valve. Yellow tank valve. Like that. And again, I'm going to take the opportunity to just copy that as I animate my red tank valve. Now, once I've animated that, I can save my display. And in order to get this display from the engineering environment to the operations environment, I need to publish it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I can see it in Delta V Live. It's generating that behind the scenes. And as soon as that gets generated, it's ready for publish. I will publish it. My VM is running slow today for some reason. I don't understand why. Apologies for that. Okay, so once I publish it, come over here to Delta V Live. This is still my display that I had brought up before, but now there's an indicator that there's a new configuration that's been changed. So I'm going to push that button to get the new version of that display. And sure enough, there's my yellow and red tanks. And my valves are gray, representing that they're closed. I can click on that valve, bring up what we call a faceplate. And from there, I can click open, and it will actually open that valve. As you can see, that valve will turn green, and as it opens, the yellow will start draining into the bottom tank and make orange paint when combined with the red paint. So that concludes this stage of the demo. Is there any feedback you all have?
So seeking feedback on 1B, where you see feedback added by participants, basically asking about the intuitiveness of the dynamic configuration here. One of the questions we'd like feedback on is, how easy was it to configure a color? Also give feedback on the actual layout of the configuration, and do the titles of the section make sense? So these are the type of things that you would want to verbalize on the feedback that you're seeking. And while folks are adding things on the post-it here for 1B, also wanted to point out the rhythm that Dwayne used here. He demoed, he paused, and then he asked, are there any feedback or specific feedback on what I just demoed? So having that rhythm of you know, showing, breaking it up, showing it, demoing it into small chunks and asking for feedback, both verbally or you know, adding stuff on Mural or whatever tool you use, you know, we found that's more manageable and we're able to gain more insights that way.
Yeah, one other lessons learned, Grace, to share is, you know, we typically try to have a couple people like myself and Amanda and you, while the demoer is going through looking at, so we're kind of behind the scenes, looking at the mural, looking at feedback. As Grace said, if we have any verbal feedback, we're capturing that and ensuring that, you know, we're understanding the feedback that's been given. If there's any questions, the worst thing is to leave a session with feedback that seems really insightful, but you're not entirely sure maybe the context of where it was coming from. So it's very important in the moment to be continuing to monitor the feedback and make sure that everything is going to make sense as you start acting on it, which could be, you know, a couple weeks down the line.
And
in fact, the behind the scenes people can actually be moderating and you know, actively answering those questions while the presenter is still doing the demo as well.
You know, the very first time we did this, Amanda, I don't know if you remember, it was with one of our product owners and we didn't think about it, right? He was demoing and I guess there was an expectation that he was supposed to look at the chat too. There was just no way he could have done that, you know, be able to talk, demo, and then look at the chats or questions that was coming in. And so we quickly learned we needed to designate a facilitator, a moderator, and have the demoer or, you know, the person demoing the product to be just that sole responsibility. So that's a great point. So I think our adding of feedback is kind of tapering off here. Is that what it's looking like? Yup. So
Yeah.
let me see if I can. Amanda, are you able to hang on? Let me.
I'm also adding some feedback that I'm getting from the chat. Because there's some questions there.
So Dwayne, I'm going to grab the screen. Hopefully this works. And I'm actually going to share my screen. Can you all see with me sharing my mural now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. So that's the actual, you know, mock demo piece of it, right? I'm just using the outline here to navigate you to the section I'm going to be talking about here, which is the post-work, right? So after the feedback session has taken place and you've received a lot of raw data, it's now time to make sense of it and to synthesize the results. Amanda alluded to this earlier. Typically, the debrief is a 3-step process for us. By the way, here's another tip, is a very good practice to set up a debrief with your team within 24 to 48 hours after the session while things are still fresh on our minds. So on the pre-work side, on the very left side of the mural, this is one thing to make sure to prep or assign somebody that's going to set up this debrief session to make sure you've got accountability there and things don't fall off. You know, days and days go by and there's no debrief that happens. So for that debrief section, the first thing we do as an agile team is we would do an exercise, like Amanda said, it's called affinity clustering, which is really nothing more. It's a technique for sorting items according to similarity, right? Once you've found all the like items, you group them together. The next thing you would do is label the clusters accordingly. For example, you know, Dwayne was talking about the configuration pane. Perhaps this category 1 that you clustered is all about feedback we received or improvements and suggestions to the interaction tab that he was showing. Secondly, from the clustering that you do above, we list all of the potential action items. You look at your categories, the clusters, and from that, what are the potential action items? Perhaps you came up with 10, 20, whatever it may be. One action item that we could have done for this would be looking into allowing our users to add opacity to the colors, right? Then thirdly, we do dot voting. We zoom out and say, out of all the action items that we came up with, and then also considering our capacity as a team, what's our top 5 and which ones will we add to the backlog in the meantime? So here I just color coded, out of the 9 action items we came up with, I color coded 3 green items, meaning these are the ones that we're going to move forward with as a team and iterate on it for the next sprint or the next program increment. All right, we are going to conclude now with other tips, tidbits, and lessons learned. I think Amanda, you started to talk about this earlier, based on our experience, customers that were part of the feedback session we've done sent us emails a day or so after with a PS. Can you please add this or add that? We've learned to give our participants 24 hours to add additional comments to the mural, or, encourage them to send you emails for additional feedback that they think of at 2 o'clock in the morning. They wake up because they realize they didn't give you this feedback, so they just have to do that. Also, if some of your Agile team members weren't able to be observers during the demo, make it a requirement for them to listen to the recording so they can productively contribute to the debrief session that I talked about up top. It's also good to practice, password protecting the mural you're using and lock sections, you all, because what's going to happen is elements will move all over the place if you don't lock your mural. The last thing, and I don't want to run out of time here, some participants are really, really shy. So I already reiterated this in the beginning. While it's good to encourage them to do verbal feedback, really, really encourage them to add comments on the Post-it notes with their initials. You get more feedback that way. Okay, we're going to leave you now with parting thoughts. The first thing, redesigning and re-engineering. Take it from me. I've done this. It's to a product is very, very, very costly after its release. Secondly, I heard it said and that there's no such thing as over communicating something that is important. So with that, I'm going to repeat a quote I told you about earlier. It actually came from the CEO of HubSpot, Brian Halligan. He once said, if we don't know what's right, we can't do more of it. And if we don't know what's wrong, we can't do less of it. Without customer feedback, we are destined to fail. You know what? We could not agree more. So guess what we're going to do? We are going to celebrate. So the confetti officially ends our customer engagement within your product development. I think we have about 5 minutes left. Open it up for questions that we may be able to answer. Hopefully, if not, we'll follow up with you.
Sorry, Grace, before we leave it there, are we going to share the template that we created for this?
Yes, we will. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's actually our parting gift. This is the mural we use for our working copy, but as Amanda said, we actually prepared a template that you all can use. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this link. Again, this is the template. You can create murals from this template I'm about to share with you. Trying to find my chat. Okay, here's my chat. I'm going to send this to everyone. Did it come through?
Yep.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us, and accept this as our parting gifts. Hopefully we encourage you to do more. And if you're not doing it already, infuse your product development with customer engagement throughout the process, not just at the end. So with that, are there any questions coming through that we can help answer?
A lot of folks saying thank you. There was somebody who asked about the template, so thanks for asking, because that reminded me to remind Grace.
Yes.
How often do we run this session, and how do we select the participants? So we kind of do it on we do it on an as needed basis, and it depends on what we're doing at the time and what customers we would get involved in that particular feedback session.
Yeah, so one thing we typically try to do is we use user personas quite a bit. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. But we talk about those personas, at the Scrum team level all the way up to the product manager level. Everyone knows kind of our personas and how we the different personas for different products and use cases. So that helps us with picking participants quite a bit. When everybody's kind of using the same personas, we can say, who is this built for? Who do we think the users are? And that really helps us dial in on what types of folks we want to get feedback from and invite.
And we also engage with our marketing and sales channel to find the proper individuals that can fulfill the need.
Can you all hear me? +1 to all of what Kenny and Dwayne and Amanda said. Remember that perhaps access to external customers or your target end users are not that easy to come by. So, we've done it to where we've invited proxy users, right? In our world, they're called project engineers. They work with our customers a whole lot, and sometimes business development, sales, they work with customers a whole lot as well. So sometimes we would use proxy users like that. For how often? Funny you ask, because the 4 of us are actually part of the customer engagement initiative team, and we actually created a customer engagement guideline to use within our product development. And the rule of thumb that we try to live by is doing customer engagement at least once every program increment. And to us, that's once every 10 weeks. So we challenge our agile teams, to consider at least do one. Let's start there. And then once we get the cadence going and we've got the behavior, just basically a cookie cutter by that time, then let's do 2 customer engagements per PI or program increment. So great question. Any other coming through?
It's the last one I saw, and it looks like we are just coming up at the top of the hour here. So,
well, how about that? Right at 11 o'clock.
Yep. It's great talking to you all. I appreciate your time.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your template.
Thanks, everybody.